Hello everyone, welcome to Boundless Vegan, your broadcast for vegan and vegetarian travel news and tips. I'm your host, Donna Ledbetter. Hello everyone, thank you for joining us again for another episode of Boundless Vegan. It's been a long time coming, but we have a great show for you today. It's one I've been very excited to share with you for quite a while. Today's guest is Rory Freedman. She's written a new book called Beg, A Radical New Way of Regarding Animals, which she talks with us about today. To me, Beg is like a treatise, a manifesto for animal lovers, and a guide to compassionate living for people who are new to expanding their consciousness about animals. But I think Rory really describes it best. Here she is, in her own words.
So I say that Beg is a battle cry and a call to arms to animal lovers to be better animal lovers.
And so the inspiration for your book was it like your own pets or just animals in general? You told an interesting story at the book signing.
I did. Good. I'm so glad. It was interesting. Yes, the inspiration for animals my animals are the inspiration for this book, all of them, not just the animals that I live with, but the animals of the world. I think they all need us to stand up for them and to speak up for them, and we can be better animal lovers to the animals that we live with and also better animal lovers to the ones out in the world.
The animals in the world, you're talking about pets like cats and dogs, but then also, you talk about like animals who are in captivity, even in terms of captivity where people are talking about like maybe for their own good, like zoos and farms and things like that, where people say they're holding animals for their own good, but to a certain degree it kind of breaks down into an exploitative kind of situation.
Yes, there's nothing for their own good. It's for the good of humans and the entertainment of humans to have animals in zoos and circuses. Animals, for their own good, live in the wild where Mother Nature placed them and intended for them to be. And, they don't need our protection. We're the ones who are harming them. We're the ones who are destroying their environments. We're the ones that are killing them so that we can wear them or eat them, or we're the ones imprisoning them so that we can be entertained by them. And if we care about the animals for their own good, we'll leave them be.
Also, you talked about, with regard to, children. So teaching children from the start how they need to be aware of the things that adults are doing. Maybe that, they attempt to do things with good intentions, but like I said, it sort of turns into an exploitative kind of situation. And then, actually here on page 66, I'll read a passage from your book that was actually very interesting. This is in particular about circuses. So it's in this section called Circuses, the Cruelest Shows on Earth, which I thought was kind of interesting, because, people grow up, going to circuses and enjoying the pleasure that animals give to them in their performances, but they don't really consider what's behind the entertainment, like all of the training that goes into it. So you're right. Obviously, when we have children, we want to do everything in our power to make them happy. Taking your kids to the circus is as much a part of parenthood as teaching them how to ride a bike. But sometimes we can be blinded to the bigger picture. We overlook the fact that the fleeting pleasure of our children causes a lifetime of suffering for animals. I just thought that was just incredibly profound.
Well, thank you. It's just entirely true. Whether it's a lifetime of imprisonment and abuse and misery and separation from families for animals in circuses, or animals that are raised in factory farms and then killed, their entire life is traded so that we can have one meal, so that we can enjoy the taste of their flesh in our mouths for just a few minutes. They have to give their whole lives for that. It just doesn't really seem like a fair trade in any way, shape, or form.
Right. And so then when you're, thinking about activities for children, you mentioned in the book that you were a mother.
Oh, I'm a mother to 3 dogs. I'm not a mother to human children.
Oh, I'm sorry. I misunderstood that. Let's say that, there are parents who have young children, and alternatives to circuses or, circus-like entertainment, what are some of the things that you might suggest that they offer to their children in lieu of a circus or a zoo or some other entertainment, like even a movie that features an animal? You mentioned, what was it? I forgot the name of the show, but Clint Eastwood, Every Which Way But Loose. So, I mean, alternatives to that kind of entertainment.
Right. Well, I think it's important to teach children compassion and kindness over selfishness and, desire to please themselves. And I think that it's important to not spare children the truth of why they're not going to zoos and circuses. And I talk about in the book having met many children at protests for zoos and circuses, and they understand exactly why they're there protesting the zoo and circus, and they're proud to be there, and they don't feel like they're missing out on anything. They're glad to not be participating in that, and they're sad for the animals. They're not, disturbed and troubled and, like destroyed as human beings. They just understand that it's wrong to use animals in these ways, and they want other people to get that same idea. And there's so many ways to entertain kids these days, and I get that kids love animals. I love animals. I loved animals as a kid. And I see why there would be this allure for children to go to zoos or circuses, because they want to see the animals. So we can instead take our kids to a farm sanctuary and let them meet these animals face to face. Let them get to know that these are individual beings and not just these robots that we take things from or that we use.
That's right. And, I would say that, that's really good advice for parents with children of any age, whether you have very young children who are just getting to know their environment around them, and then also for older children, like maybe, someone decided later in life to become an animal activist of sorts, and, maybe they were taking their kids to zoos and circuses like we were talking about, but then, maybe imparting some of that new knowledge to even their older children so that, they can understand that even later in their childhood that, it's not good to use animals for our own entertainment.
I think without question this information is for kids of all ages. Everybody at every age, whether we're adults, whether we're young children, whether we're adolescents or teenagers or in our 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, it doesn't matter how old we are. Compassion and mercy are always, we're always the right age to learn compassion and mercy and to keep learning it over and over and over again.
Now, a lot of people still, and, even when they become, aware and enlightened, and I have to say that, this is something that didn't even dawn on me until I read your book. But, for the longest time, I had this bucket list, as a person who loves travel, a bucket list of places that I've always wanted to visit, things that I've always wanted to see. And one of the things that I have always wanted to do was to see the running of the bulls, until you explained in your book, like, even though we're looking at that type of experience, like, for example, the running of the bulls as a cultural experience that, people in another country are doing, perhaps, unaware, of the effect on the animals. We still, even as Americans visiting that country or, just as vegans or animal lovers, we have a responsibility to not patron those types of events. And you also give information in your book about, how you can contact people in the different countries, to help them, realize that it's not okay to, continue the running of the bulls or the bullfighting or, other things that you mentioned like that.